1 minute until someone runs into them.
Yeah.
The most hilarious part is they're so neutral, so generic. Unless you were switched on in politics, you wouldn't have a clue which government funded that.
Do you want to look like you're busy, Henry?
No, I'm just going to sit here like as if I know it all.
Just nod.
That's right, nod stage.
Yes. I hate it when they do that at press conferences. They're like, they eyeball the back of their head and nod.
Okay. Welcome to the special council meeting of Wyndham City Council this Tuesday, 18 September 2018. In the spirit of reconciliation, before we begin this meeting, I acknowledge the peoples of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which Wyndham is being built. We pay our respects to their elders past and present. Please stand for the opening prayer and welcome. We pray for guidance in the Council's decision-making to achieve the best outcome for the people of Wyndham. Please be seated. I would like to welcome members of the gallery, press, councillors, and staff here tonight for the special council meeting. I advise that in accordance with the council resolution of the statutory meeting held in November 2017, I will be chairing this meeting as the mayor is on an approved leave of absence. Some of you may have seen the notices in the foyer, but for those of you who didn't, I would like to make you aware of the following. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the internet. The recording will be archived and made available on Council's website. Whilst all care had been taken to ensure that your privacy is maintained, please be aware that your presence may be recorded. Item 2, apologies and request for leave. Madam CEO, are there any apologies for this evening?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. We do in fact have one apology, and as you mentioned earlier, that she's from Councillor Peter Maynard, who is currently on an approved leave of absence. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam CEO. Councillors, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Kim. Seconder? Councillor Ann. Councillors, any discussion? All those in favor? Against? Motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is declaration by councillors of disclosure of conflict of interest or conflicting personal interest in any item of the agenda. Councillors, does anyone have any conflict of interest that they may wish to declare in relation to tonight's agenda? No. None? Thank you, councillors. We don't need to look at that. No. Thank you, councillors. Next item on the agenda, item 4, officers' reports. 4.1, Wyndham City Financial Reports for the year ended 30 June 2018. Report is in pages 3 to 8, recommendation page 4, attachments page 9 to 73. Councillors, do I have a mover? Councillor Kim. Seconder. Councillor Tony Hooper. Councillor Kim, as the mover, would you like to speak at this time?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The statements have been prepared in accordance with the applicable accounting standards and all other regulatory requirements. They have been reviewed by the Auditor General's Office and updated as per their feedback. In the Audit and Risk Committee last week, we reviewed and discussed the statements with the external auditors, and we recommend that Council authorise the certification of these statements. Overall, Wyndham City is currently in a healthy financial position. Council has achieved an operating surplus of $229 million in the 2017-18 period. However, while it is a very strong result, it's also important to note that this includes amounts that Council has received from developer contributions, as well as one-off non-reoccurring grants. Included in the results is $238 million of monetary and non-monetary assets, and as stated, it's really difficult to determine when these come on board as far as new assets are transferred from estates to Council. The developer contributions are made either in cash or in the form of assets that are transferred to Council. It is important to stress that developer contributions come with future financial obligations of this Council to build infrastructure and to provide ongoing maintenance of those assets. In the reporting of our results for the 30th of June 2018, we also look at the term the adjusted underlying result, which focuses on the core income and expenses categories of Council services and operations. The adjusted underlying result reflects a deficit of $17 million. Whilst the majority of those underlying revenue and expense categories are in line with budget assumptions we made for 2017-18, the deficit is primarily caused by around $30 million in major road and bridge assets that have been taken over and transferred to Vic Roads over the past year. Council's overall net asset base has increased by $281 million, including $91 million increase in cash holdings. However, a significant portion of funds are held for future community infrastructure and other capital works projects. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McLean. Councillors, do we have a speaker against the motion? None. Do we have a speaker for the motion?
Yes.
Councillor Mia Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. So I am also pleased to support the resolution to approve in principle the financial statements, performance statement and the governance and management checklist for the year ending 30 June 2018. I note that these documents have also been reviewed by our Audit and Risk Management Committee, who have recommended that Council approve. These are important documents in that they detail the impacts of Council services and operations through the year and inform us of the value of our assets and liabilities as at 30 June 2018. As such, they are a key reference point for us in our future planning and budgeting. Whilst the statements reflect a sound financial position, I would like to note the high level of rates that are outstanding to be paid to Council. The total amount of rates outstanding at the end of June was $12.9 million. This is a significant number and equates to around 7% of annual rates revenue. Rates are the primary revenue source for Council and fund the capital works and community services provided by Council. It is therefore important that we continue to work with ratepayers to ensure that rates are paid on time. In addition to reminder letters and emails, we are also currently trialling SMS technology to send reminders, which a lot of residents have been asking about. Sometimes a gentle reminder is all that is required. There will, of course, also be residents who are facing financial hardship due to personal circumstances. I would urge those residents to make direct contact with Council officers to discuss their eligibility for payment plans under hardship considerations. Unfortunately, there are some residents who seem to actively choose not to pay rates. In fairness to other residents, Council does need to consider its options to actively pursue these outstanding rates. Hopefully, our continued focus in working with our residents and understanding the makeup of our outstanding rates will lead to an overall improvement in rates collection. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillors, would any councillor who has not yet spoken wish to speak? Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Basically, I think a lot's been said, thanks to Councillor McEloney and Councillor Shaw. I'd just like to mention and say thank you to the staff that put all the work into that. We get to basically look at the semi-finished product, and then we polish it up and it becomes a finished product, but it's the council officers that do all of this work. And just the same when we do the budget process mid-year, a lot of work, we put in a lot of hours obviously, but there's a lot of work done by the council officers. So if the directors could take back my thanks, and I'm sure the other councillors' thanks, in the work that goes into this, and we look forward to a bigger and better year next year.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. As there are no other further speakers, Councillor Makalani, as the mover of the motion, would you like to close the debate and say something else? Councillor Giran, sorry.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't going to say anything, but I guess I think it is worth reiterating the point that Councillor McAloney has made, particularly on the transfer of assets, which inevitably, for some reason, is still included as income. And I still have a big issue with that in creating a very inflated surplus in terms of these reports. That's obviously an accounting standard, but nevertheless is quite confusing to the ordinary citizen who doesn't have a financial background. And the other thing I think is also fascinating, particularly taking the point of Councillor Shaw on rates, is the inevitable situation that we're now facing with significant increases in the cost of delivering infrastructure in this city, where contingencies in the future of some 20 to 30% are going to be required on some of these projects. When you take that on a per $1 million basis, we're talking upwards of $200,000 to $300,000 per million in being able to deliver infrastructure beyond what is projected now. And that's because of the demand that's being driven across the state on infrastructure, and that ultimately has significant pressure on our rates. And it does raise the question, particularly around what the Victorian framework will be on the development of a growth rate that does factor these things in, particularly when it comes to forcing the politicisation of this issue by having to go for a rate exemption to the statutory agency that obviously considers that. So I think this is going to be a greater issue for us in future years, and something that we all should be cognizant of, because not just the outstanding rates revenue that we have in people that are not paying now, but the increased expectation to get more out of the rate money that we have, yet the market is completely going a different direction. And that will put pressure on all of us to have to explain that in basic terms to the community when they're asking the question, well, why are things costing more, but how much do we have to pay in order to get the services and the infrastructure that we want and that we need? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilligan, and my apologies, I didn't ask the question about if there are others who want to speak. So is there anyone else, any other councillor who wants to speak? Nobody else? Councillor Makalani, do you want to speak further? Okay. Councillors, I now put the motion to a vote. All in favor? All against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 5, confidential business. There's none. Item 6, close of meeting. I declare the meeting closed at 7:13. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Ladies and gentlemen, meeting's closed.
Record meeting.